Hey there, beautiful brothers and sisters, and everyone listening to us. This is Esoteric Side, a podcast, website, and school where we start a dialogue about esoteric wisdom, about psychology, about spirituality, so you guys can apply it in a practical way in your day-to-day life. I'm so happy to be back with you guys again. And we have a very, very, very special guest for today, Dr. Peter Reznik. Dr. Peter Reznik is a teacher of mine, someone I consider a mentor that I love just all the stuff he does. He was born in the Ukraine, and he's got over 40 years of experience helping others attain physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Uh, a recognized specialist in the fields of mind-body integrative therapy, behavioral modification, mental imagery, dream work, clinical hypnosis, and morphology. He's got a master's degree in linguistics and social work and a doctorate in health and human services. He practiced psychotherapy, conducted wellness seminars, and helped over 35,000 patients in the former USSR, Israel, France, and the US. He's a faculty member at the American Institute of Mental Imagery, as well as a former staff member at the Schachter Center for Complementary Medicine, former director of Petrie Institute of Hypnosis, and a former consultant to the American Health Foundation. He practices also a millennia-old Mediterranean tradition of healing taught to him by Dr. Gerald Epstein and Madame Colette. I'm not even going to try and pronounce her last name, so I don't mess it up. Peter, how are you today, my dear, dear Peter?
I'm good, thank you, and thank you for inviting me. It's a privilege for me to be with you and your listeners. For all viewers, yes, it's a video.
Yes. I'm so excited to have you today. I invited you here to talk about a range of things. Specifically, at some point in the conversation, I would love to talk about discovering subconscious beliefs, because I know it's something you work a lot with. But first, I would very much like you to tell a bit of your story about how you worked with your mentor, because I'm very interested in this oral tradition that's passed down from master to student, that's very common in kind of this initiate schools. And, you know, in self-help shows and books, and we all hear about you got to have a mentor, you have to have a mentor, right? But this tradition has been around for ever so long, right? All the ancient traditions knew that you had to have someone to study under. And I kind of want to hear your story first about how this process happened for you, how you learned everything you know about your masters and your lineage with this. Would that be okay, Mr. Peter? Dr. Peter?
I love the question, actually. It brings me back to good memories. In 1989, I was already a therapist for over 10 years, practicing in America. And before that, I was using hypnosis in the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, treating asthma, treating serious physical illnesses. And so in 1989, I was a co-director of the Institute of Hypnotherapy called Petrie Institute. And everything was fine on the surface. I was part of this huge practice. We had 11 therapists. I did seminars on quit smoking, weight control, stress management in New York City, in Hilton Hotel. I remember in a green room with 50 people in a group, seemingly everything successful, but I kind of, we were doing good things. 82% success rate. I was on ABC News, the most successful program for quitting smoking in the country. But it was getting boring. A lot of money, a lot of seeing people, but was getting boring, doing the same thing. And I had some personal issues. I was kind of not sure about the relationship. I needed to end it. It was a 7-year-long relationship. I was not in a right place deep inside. And I remember left my friends, it was in Vermont, and I went into a little gazebo. And I said, okay, God, if you are listening to me now, this is the time to help. It was the first time I really spoke to God like this. And I said, I need help. I need help to have a vision to where I'm going with my work and to resolve the relationship. Alex, I want to tell you, within 3 weeks, my whole life changed. First, I somehow got the courage to speak to my girlfriend at that time, and we parted in beautiful ways, in such ways that still over 30 years later, once a year, we call each other on birthday. She lives back in France. So, but within 2 weeks, I met somebody who wanted to write an article, and we were writing an article together, and he mentioned this Dr. Gerald Epstein. And I was about to give a workshop. They used to have like health expos in New York City and around the United States. And I learned that Dr. Gerald Epstein was also giving a talk. So I walked over and introduced myself to him. And he was like so friendly and said, "Oh, why don't you come and listen to me talk?" And I did. And he was talking about face reading, which was fascinating, of course, to me. And then he said, "Why don't we get together for lunch?" And I was thinking, who am I? That he wants to help. He's a very famous person now. I knew he wrote interesting books. But when we met, and I said to him, he said to me, "Oh, you have to come for lunch one day to my home. My wife is a wonderful cook." And I said, "I'm sorry, not now, because I'm going to Israel." And he said, "Oh, then you have to go and visit my teacher." And I went to visit his teacher. And at that time, she was 82 years old when I met her. And I remember, and she was in a room, like a big living room with 30, 35 people sitting on chairs, sitting on the floor. She was doing imagery. And I, in my judgmental way, said to myself, I know imagery, I've done imagery, and it's nothing special. I wonder how much she charges. If there are 30 people, maybe even she charges $10 or $300. I'm doing these silly things. And then a woman next to me is whispering, what a wonderful woman she is. She never charges any money. She teaches students her way. She sees patients, never charges. And I go, here goes Peter. So, and then she does these exercises. And I was used to doing hypnotherapy. I was used to doing positive visualizations. And suddenly she gives an exercise and says, go look deep inside. I don't remember the details, but I remember suddenly seeing something that, not a positive visualization, but something that pops into my mind that was scary to me. And I think, what's that? So I understood that what she was doing was different than from positive visualization, positive imagery within hypnosis that I did. And so then after I stayed with her, I introduced myself as coming from Gerald Epstein, and she invited me for personal meeting. I didn't know that she was reading my face and assessing me if I could be a good student, but she did. And she did with me an exercise, imagery exercise. And I can tell you what it was. And that was the beginning of my studentship. She asked me if I remembered any dreams. And I said, oh yeah, I remember the night dream where there were gargoyles, on Notre Dame de Paris, the Paris, Notre Dame. And she said, okay, just close your eyes and go back and see what happens with the gargoyles. And, with my knowledge of how to do imagery, so I thought I will go and just confront them. And so I closed my eyes. Remember, cars are passing by. We're sitting in her little garden. And I go to these gargoyles and suddenly they go, Arr! And in the heat of 90 degrees, it's Israel, I got goosebumps. I was cold, shivering. Suddenly I realized it's within my mind. I know I can open my eyes anytime, but they are not under my control. And I suddenly say, Colette, that they kind of are angry. They don't want me to tame them. And she said, find your way, and so on. She guided me how to deal with those demons. And I opened my eyes and I understood that there was a whole new world waiting for me, because imagination can be used for discovering all that is hidden inside of you. That was my beginning. And then, of course, I studied with her for 13 years. I traveled every year. I spent with her maybe 10 to 2 days to 14 days. And in between, I stayed in America, and I also studied with Gerald Epstein. So that was the beginning of my journey. Colette learned her way from her father, who was one of the first brain surgeons in the World War I. And her father learned from his mother, and her mother learned from her grandmother, and going all the way back to in the Bible book Kings 2, there is a name mentioned called, and the sons of the prophets did such and such thing. Sons of the prophets were schools, very much unlike in Buddhist monasteries and Christian monasteries. There were specializations. These sons of the prophets were schools where they used mental imagery for healing, and that's where this tradition comes from. But originally it goes back even further back to the book of Ezekiel 1, chapter 1, where there is this chariot appears. If you remember the Bible, Ezekiel is elevated and sees the 4 animals rotating, a person, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. And these are basically 4 temperaments that we know, 4 energies that all human beings are part of. So the original name of that approach was Kabalah of Merkava, or Kabalah of chariot, Kabalah of imagination. And that Kabalah of imagination was adopted by the sons of the prophets, and that's where the tradition comes from. So whatever I teach, I didn't invent. Maybe I added some exercises here and there, but mostly it's a very old tradition of healing that saw an individual as an inseparable whole organism living simultaneously in multiple realities. Physical realities, it's a physical embodiment of our beliefs, emotional reality, social reality, mental reality, and spiritual realities. And the imbalance on one level would create, or not create, because it's radiated, it's reflected as imbalance in all others. And in order to achieve wholeness, one needs to address all the levels. And most of the time, it doesn't matter where you start. But it's better to start from the inside, but you always need to anchor it with the work on the outside. I hope I answered your question.
So that reminds me a lot of Ayurveda and how they say that whatever happens to your body sooner or later affects your mind, which sooner or later will affect your spirit, and vice versa. No, it's like a two-way street. Like what happens to your spirit will sooner or later affect your mind, which will sooner or later affect your body. It's a beautiful story. I love the fact that you're kind of bearing your soul here and how you started on this journey. But can you tell me like a little bit about the difference between if you were to have learned this in a book versus learned it in a course with different masters versus literally spending so many years and hours being around these mentors of yours? What do you think the main difference would have been, or what's the difference between having this teacher that you spend time with and you're around, and their energy and their voice and everything affects you and permeates you?
It's a very good question. Alex, I don't know how it would be with different teachers. I know that Colette never wanted us to become another Colette. She knew, and when I say us, she didn't have, like in university, you have every year hundreds of students. No, maybe, it's my guess, but maybe she had over last 40, 50 years that she taught, maybe she had 25, maybe 30 the most students. She would pick students, very careful. I was one before the last one. And the last one was my nephew, Oleg, who is a medical doctor now. I brought him to America, and he lived with me. So after 4 years of knowing Colette, I brought him to Israel, and he became her last student. And he was an exceptional student. Colette wrote a little book of poetry, which is a spiritual guidance. And he memorized all 86 poems. And she said he understood them more than anybody else. And people could say, when he would talk at her salons, number 28, and he would recite the poem and then give perfect explanation, all levels of the meaning of the poem. So I just wanted to show off a little bit with my nephew. So Colette's way was a unique way. I don't teach the way she does. We work, the tools we use the same. We use understanding the body, which is human morphology. We use mental imagery, waking dreams. But how we introduce our ideas are very different. Colette mainly taught through us observing her work, which means I would come and sit. Her door was always open. As I said, she never charged money, so people would come one after the other, sometimes waited outside, sometimes would just sit quietly while she worked with other people. Because she didn't charge the money, she was not constrained by, oh, my session is 45 minutes, an hour. No, sometimes somebody would come, she would give a short exercise in response to their request and say, thanks for coming in, goodbye. After 5 minutes, a person goes, and somebody needed an hour, and she would spend an hour with them. And people came from 7 o'clock in the morning till lunch. She had an hour and a half break, and then she would work till sunset. And I would just sit next to her and watch her work. And mostly she would either do short exercises or tell stories. She taught through stories. Opposite to what I even now, when I teach professionals and I teach courses to professionals this way, and it takes 1.5 years, once a week for 2 hours. But I teach it in a different way because I have different temperament and I need to teach concepts and all the bodies of knowledge that I learned from her. But she did not teach concepts. You needed to pick out what you learn, what you observe, and integrate it in your way. So she shared no concepts. So I don't know what would become of me working with somebody else. I know that I've been blessed to have this teacher. She moved on at the ripe age of almost 95. She was short of 90, maybe 3 weeks to being 95. She died. She taught her last class. I wasn't there. She taught a class, not to her students who were learning to do what she does, but class to lay people in her beautiful little garden with blue gates. And she said goodbye to everyone, as she always did, and said, be happy. Everybody left. The woman who was helping her out gave her lunch. She had lunch, thanked the woman for everything, closed her eyes, and died. But if you permit me, I want to say something else. A year before she died, I was with a couple of other students, and she said to us, somewhere a year from now, it will be my time to go. And none of us objected because she earned her, her right to go. So none of us objected. And in fact, she didn't die a year later, she died 11.5 months later. But she said a year from now, it's time to go. And one of us said, when you go, how do you want to be regarded? As who? And she said, as a teacher. And we said, teacher of what? And she said, the truth. And we said, what is truth? And she said, is the now. And we all understood that everything she ever taught us was how to align ourselves to the present moment and to live in truth. And when we are not in truth, all these exercises of mental imagery, waking dreams, they will reveal to us. And then she would give us tools, or now I am giving tools, how to balance ourselves, how to make the changes within ourselves, to live in truth in the present moment, because that's all we have. That's my answer.
You are just blowing my mind, sir. The reason why I asked this question is because working with different masters, working with different teachers, there's something about congruence in how they live their life that helps, that the energy just being around them, that really helps me kind of follow in that same energy in my own way, of course. Like I never try and be my teachers, but I do try and get the energy and their way. There's something happens in my recollection, because like you said, Kabalah is passed down from teachers to student, by being around them for so long. And I've read Kabbalah books, and I don't get the same thing as being around a master. And I think it's about this energy that gets transmitted. And as you know, like kind of the Eastern traditions, and they have all this emphasis in the guru waking up or waking you up or helping you out. And there does seem to be something special about their presence. That's kind of where the question was oriented. Like, have you felt that energy of your teachers kind of guide you, or wake something up in you, or teach you something just by the way they are?
I can answer. I can try to answer. Yes, I felt something special being around Colette, and it was sense of knowing that she had. And she did not claim that she knew everything. In fact, when she would speak about something, she would speak very confidently about certain things. When you ask her a question, she would say this and this. Or she would say, this and this, I think so, but I don't know for sure. And you, after a while, you knew exactly what she meant. What she meant, if she said this and this is so, it simply meant that she had a direct experience and knowledge that it is so. It didn't come from intellect. But if she said, I think so, but I don't know for sure, it means that's her mental conclusion, but that has not been her experience. So therefore, you felt very settled, very comfortable. You knew where she was. Was extremely knowledgeable and honest. I believe she was a master, was living in peace without anger. That's why I call myself a teacher. I'm not a master. The difference, I believe, between a master and a teacher is that the master lives what they teach. When I begin my courses, very often, particularly when it's mastering certain things, like I have a course on fear, a course of called Becoming Your Own Healer, and so on mastering different qualities of yourself, I say, I'm going to teach you something that I aspire to become, but I am not, which means I teach, for example, on my podcast, I was just talking about anger. And I teach how to tame the anger, not to judge. And in many ways, over the years, I tamed the impulses to anger, but it's not 100% tamed. And many other qualities that I discovered about myself. 30 years ago, 30 years ago, Gerald Epstein asked me to write a list of qualities that I need to transform. And there is a particular way, it's called life plan, of how to do it through imagery and will. And he asked me to write a list. And I remember I found 11 qualities I wanted to work on. And we're talking about 30 years ago. And now I have on my list 10 qualities. How? Over the years, I came up with 3 more qualities. And so it became 14. And 4 I took off the list in 30 years because I don't need to deal with them at all. But then I would say some I mastered to 80%, some to 90, but mostly 40, 50, 60. You know, the Hebrew word for quality is midah. And the word midah has its own meaning. The word midah means measure. Measure. So, for example, if you want half a kilo, you say half of midah. Measure me half of kilo. So it's a measure, because the maker, you probably know that the Hebrew is like a magical language. The words are very meaningful. Every word has within itself a meaning, which means if I say, we call it table, but for this little table I have in front of me, but it could be Bob, could be Mabel. It doesn't matter. There is no wisdom within a table, the word table. But for example, the word in Hebrew, the word machala, for example, means disease. But machal means forgiveness. And if you take word letters and begin to play with the letters inside, it will be forgiveness, it will be making an error, it means prayer, it means healed. So the word disease means you made an error, you need to pray, and you will be forgiven and healed. You understand? So the words are very meaningful. So, and the word midah means not only quality that we need to work, but we can work only on the measure to which we can diminish certain qualities, so increase certain qualities. We cannot eradicate them in one lifetime. We can only change the measure. So it's a long way to answer that I'm not a master. I'm just working on the measure. Colette was a master, I believe.
That's so profound. I remember when I was rotating through psychiatry and I was speaking to some of the psychiatrists that were mentoring me there in my internship in medical school. I asked, and how do you deal with the different illnesses they have? And they're like, oh yeah, these people with that are crazy, that for labeling it something, I know it's not. Well, they don't really get sick. And I was like, whoa, that really hit me. Like, why people that are in mental institutions that are kind of very disconnected with reality, with schizophrenia, why they don't manifest illness in their body and they just manifest it in their brain. And I was reading this book on transgenerational healing. They said when there's twins, one twin will normally manifest everything physically, and the other one will manifest their problems emotionally or mentally. And I was observing, and I do have some patients that are twins, and it did observe that one twin will normally be more sick physically, and one will be more mentally unstable. It was very curious how this disconnection with reality forms or happens. I don't know if you have any insights on that, because all the information you just gave us was incredible, and I would like to kind of move the conversation on to the skills and tools you have to determine subconscious beliefs that may not be serving us or that do serve us. How do they tackle these subconscious beliefs?
The question is, if you want me to go into the twins story, it will take a long time.
Oh, this is so interesting and so awesome. I'm at a crossroads. Peter, you choose. I trust your judgment.
I will say just a couple of words. I think that your audience, from knowing you now, Alex, not a long time, but I think your audience is quite sophisticated. So they understand know about Kabalah and the founding work of Kabalah is Zohar. and it's written in Zohar, you choose the womb opening through which you come, which means the soul chooses. So the soul is on a certain level of spiritual evolution with the midot, with qualities, and it needs to come and work on its own issues. But it needs genetic material, it needs physical environment to come through in a physical plane. So it chooses the parents. And let's say, it's my understanding, I am not a teacher of spirituality or Kabalah, God forbid, I'm a student, beginner student. But my understanding is that the soul had issues to address. And the issues were multiple. But somehow, this particular couple had the genetic material that is right for the evolution of this soul. So it comes as twins, as you know, probably know, that even though there are many, many twin studies, and medicine benefits enormously from studies of twins, but if you get to know the twins, you know they're very different. Outward characteristics are the same, but inner characteristics, and I worked with some twins, are very different. So each came to work through the same parents, also through sharing. Remember, the twins have this unique relationship with themselves. So the soul probably had an issue in conflict with the self. So there is a relationship with your own almost mirror, but not, and a relationship with the world outside. And these parents are facilitators, but the twin is also a facilitator of the development of its own soul, of another aspect of the self. Am I kind of giving you a little? Okay, so that's it. I don't want to go into it. First, I don't have too much to say. The second, we probably are limited in time, and I would like to talk about, you said discovering the unconscious beliefs, but when you said that, I just had an idea that you actually shortchanged yourself, because I would want you to say not only discovering the unconscious beliefs, that's not enough, but if necessary, changing them. So what you discover something, and then you live with it? No, you need to change. So how do we discover the unconscious beliefs? Again, the audience probably is familiar with the yin and yang. Every spiritual tradition has this understanding. The Hebrew star, one triangle looking up, the Magen David, one triangle looking up, one looking down, as above, so below. The four other corners are simply nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, earth, air, fire, water. But basically, as above, so below. So the same thing, Hermetic tradition in Egypt, as above, so below. Hindus for 4,000 years said, what is there in the Upanishads? What is there is here. What is here is there. What is not here is nowhere. And the most beautiful graphic representation is, of course, yin and yang. What is inside is outside. What is outside is inside. So the same thing. The unconscious beliefs are simply manifested, number one, through our environment, not just surrounding us. First, our first environment of the beliefs is our human body. I saw, Alex, you holding one time my book, Face Reading for Successful Relationships, right? So you are familiar. I don't know if your listeners or your viewers are familiar with it, but the first embodiment of our beliefs with which we ride into this world is our body. Give you an example of, and when I supervise my classes, I have what is called clinical morphology. By the way, the word morphology means morpho means form, and logos means meaning. So the meaning of form. Human morphology is the meaning of human form. So let's say somebody, a soul is developed as being able to manifest things, a doer, a creator, powerful, strong, leader, organized, meticulous. That's all the qualities of the soul, but a little bit disconnected emotion. So that soul will choose what embodiment? Tell me temperamentally. A belifs. It will be a certain body type. And let's say another soul has a belief, you have to fight a war. Life is tough. You have to get your way. It's better to fight than negotiate. And here we have a sanguine. And somebody else has a belief, evolved soul, and it has the belief, I can outsmart everybody. I am brilliant. I am able to prove myself through my intellect, or I'm able to manipulate and trick if I want. And we have the nervous temperament. And yet another belief, I can hold knowledge. I'm brilliant. I'm compassionate. I'm loving. I'm a great companion. And we have a lymphatic temperament. So the temperaments with which we come is the first reflection of our inner beliefs, the beliefs that the soul brings into the human experience. That's the first way to understand the unconscious beliefs. But of course, for that you need to know human morphology. Then you study the book, and hopefully your viewers can get the book and learn for themselves. The next way to understand a person's unconscious beliefs is their environment. That is, I give someone this assignment. Think about outside world as if it came as a reflection of your view of that world. Are you living in a safe place? How do you feel? Many years ago, I saw a woman, a young woman in her 30s, and said, when I was 10 or 12 years old, when I got my first period, my mom sat me in front of her and said, listen, I want you to know, now you're a young woman. Men are all lying, cheating dogs. And the young woman said to me, you know something, Dr. Reznik? My mother was right. That's been my experience. Her mother confirmed, you understand? First, she came into this world through this mother, that she also had doubt about relationships. And then her mother gave her this suggestion. And then she lived that experience. And in order to change those beliefs, we need to do it, one, through the inner representation of beliefs, and that is an image, and through act of will. I ask her actually to give it a try and to dare and say, there is a man there who I can trust as a friend. Open yourself to having a friendship with a man, because you never had men as friends. And so, and then also we developed a trusting relationship. And I said, I am a guy, I'm a man. I don't need anything from you. I'm not going to cheat on you, lie to you, make tricks. We have a contract, you pay me X amount of money. And I'm honest with you. You can ask me any question. And so it was kind of a shocking thing for her to discover, maybe I'm not so right, that all men. And once you make a little, dent in her belief system, then she goes a little further and a little further. So the way you know about your inner beliefs is by the environment. If you are surrounded by thieves, so your belief is, the world is full of thieves. If you are surrounded by people who abuse you, I am a victim. That's how. But people think, no, I believe, I deserve, I have rights. No, that's your positive wish for. The way we know what your unconscious beliefs are, more than anything, is how you live your life. That's your reflection. then you need to change the beliefs to change your environment. And of course, then the next bigger reflection of our beliefs is the big world. All this deforestation, destroying indigenous populations, that's also a reflection of our beliefs, particularly Western civilization. Unlike Native Americans who said you have to take care of 7 generations after you, Westerners came and started destroying the nature. And now we're talking about global warming, deforestation, we're destroying ourselves. Yeah, thank you. Thank God you're waking up now. This is a reflection of our beliefs. So now, another way to look at our beliefs is through a mirror called night dreams. In fact, it's interesting, in Bhagavad Gita, it's written, it is through the night dreams that God speaks to men. So our night dreams are encapsulation, are stories that reflects to us our beliefs. Alex, I want to know how much time we have, because I don't know how much I can go into the details about everything.
We have 12 minutes.
Okay. So the great theologian, Hebrew philosopher, theologian, and a medical doctor, who was a medical doctor of Sultan Saladin of Egypt, Moses Maimonides, said, "Tell me what your night dreams are, and I will tell you not only who you are, but who you can become." The night dreams are encapsulation or form, image, embodiment of our beliefs. And they tell us who we are, and why did he say, and who you can become. Because let's say you discover in a dream, you're a victim. That's who you are. And when you wake up, what do you think you will be like? You'll continue being a victim. The wonderful thing about the night dreams is the night dream is not only a reflection of who you are, it's also a blueprint for where you're going. And the blueprint, those of you who know about architecture, you have a blueprint, and then you take a little, these days probably through computers, but my image is still, you take an eraser and you change a little bit, you work on the blueprint. So the same thing, you can work with your night dreams. You can correct your night dreams, and that's what I teach within waking dreams. You change the blueprint, and therefore you inform your inner being with new information, and then it's manifested in your physical world. So that's another way to know your unconscious beliefs, through your night dreams. Of course, you need to know how to work with them. And if your viewers are interested, they can go on my website and read my article. I believe it's a good article. It's a manual on how to work on your night dreams. You can give them, or I can give my website. Yeah, can I
Yes, the website will be in the description if it's on YouTube and on Spotify, whatever. I'll add it.
drpeterreznik.com, and they go on the articles, and there is an article. There are many articles, but you go the article called the Dream Work, and there I teach not only about the night dream, but how to enter the dream and make a correction. Another way to work to discover your unconscious beliefs is through probing or discovery exercises. Give you an example. I taught this class and with a group of people, a big group, and I gave the exercise. See yourself being attacked. Open your eyes. It's very little time that I give to people. Why very little time? So they wouldn't start making up stories, because then there is no value if they begin to think, oh, what do I want to see? Then you're making up something. It has no value. But if it spontaneously something jumps in your mind, that reflects what is inside. So I said, see yourself, to this particular group, see yourself being attacked, open your eyes. And in the group, there was a guy in his 50s, but sleeves rolled up like this, muscles bulging, and obvious he wants everybody to see how strong he is. You understand there is some kind of issue, but that it's so important to him that everybody would see how he. And he had like a very very thin shirt, and the sleeves really were rolled up so that everybody would see every little muscle on his body. And so he opened his eyes and was a little embarrassed. But he wanted to get value from the exercise. So he said, I saw myself being in the corner. I was like 10 or 11, in the corner sitting like this, and two kids were kicking me with their feet, with their boots. I never even asked him whether it was historical memory or it was just a symbolic image. It wasn't relevant, not important, because we know deep inside there is this little scared boy. That's why he needed the muscles to show that he's so strong. Inside, he's scared. Inside, he's a victim. So I taught him to go back to this image, and knowing, and at that time when I gave this exercise, I already trained them a little bit. It was already this 3rd or 4th class, and it was a 12-week class. And so he knew that everything is possible in imagination, and I asked him to go and make a correction. And it was interesting, because when you make correction, you do it spontaneously. You don't plan, I'm going to go do this and this. You follow your intuition, you do what comes in the moment. And when he opened his eyes after a minute and a half, he said that he grabbed their feet and pulled them and they fell. And then he let them go because one of them started crying. And then he said, listen, I don't want to fight. I want us to be friends. And that was it. So, and I asked him to do it for 7 days and meet those kids and negotiate. And the interesting thing, and the reason I remember him, though this particular course I taught years ago, was because after not maybe that class, but 2 classes later, he stopped wearing this show of clothes. It felt like now he felt secure. I don't know. I know I've seen so many people. I don't know what happened to him. But my feeling is there was a shift. He felt much more secure. Interesting, in the same class, and probably that's why I remember it then, because there was a woman, and it was in Manhattan, in my office. I had a big space. A woman, in the beginning of the class, I say, please introduce yourselves. And everybody says something in a couple of words, what they do in life. And that woman said, I'm a social worker. I work with underprivileged kids. I work in South Bronx. It kind of, she needed to state, what she does, and that she is charitable and caring and extending herself to underprivileged. So, and when I said, what happened to you? She said, well, remember the CSL being attacked, right? So, which is a probing exercise to what? What happens when you're unsafe? How do you act? Because very often we don't know what happens. And this spontaneously appearing image really tells us what would happen if we were in danger. And she said, this big black man grabbed my purse and I kicked him in between his legs. So we learned 2 belief systems. 1, this lady is not a victim. She knows how to fight, stand up for herself. 2, she's a bigot. If it's an assaulter, if it's a criminal, it's a black man. Even though she said, I helped, blah, 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 blah. No, she is definitely a prejudice, and she expects if there is danger, it's coming from a black person. You understand? So you learn a lot from these exploratory exercises. When I teach my course to clinicians, and as I said, it takes a year and a half, I probably spend good 4 to 5 months teaching imagery. And mostly it's not theory. I take people through, my students, I take them through at least minimum 45 exercises. Why? Because I want them not to theoretically learn what the exercises are and how to do it to others. I want them to experience for themselves what it is, and if necessary, how to make corrections. So we said the embodiment of your beliefs is one, your physical body, your environment, surrounding environment, and then the big environment of the whole planet. And then your images that come spontaneously in response to discovery exercises or probing exercises, and then night dreams. This is how you know your unconscious beliefs. We have a few minutes, so we still have some time for.
Yeah. We have 7 minutes left. If you have a little bit more time, a couple more minutes, 2 or 3, whatever. If we go a little bit over, I have no problem. But I was speaking with you earlier, and I think a couple of days ago, and I told you that one thing or a manner of identifying belief systems, or very strong rooted belief systems that are not serving my patients, or that maybe they are, is exaggerated responses. A lot of times, what someone will say a phrase like, "This is the way reality is," right? And then you just kind of understand that, okay, that what they just said is a belief that they hold, an absolute like generalization for life that really programs the way they interact and view the world. But a lot of times when something happens, someone will overreact, like an overreaction is kind of subjective, right? But they will have a very strong reaction and emotion to it. And that, to me, really identifies, okay, they have a belief of this being bad or wrong, or some belief tied around this reaction.
Give me an example of specific probe that you'd say that will exaggerate it.
Okay, so for example, a friend of mine the other day, she was speaking about her sexuality and how she was pansexual, right? And I made a comment about that. I don't think the term pansexual is actually expresses the full range of that. And we're talking, and she really got angry that I was, judging her sexuality. It's like, no, I'm not judging, your sexuality at all. I'm just saying that, the term pan and sexual in general, I don't think grasp the entire concept of that, right? So I understood that she had a belief that her sexuality either was wrong or judged by other people. Does it make sense?
Yeah, when you jump to defend something, it means you have a niche, for sure. And my question to you is then, it becomes an intellectual awareness of something, right? How do you go then about helping a person?
In my aspect, in my practice?
Because to me, the reason I use imagery, because images can be changed. You can go into the image and change it and reinforce, inform your subconscious mind with new images that begin to fuel new feelings. And then your belief system is changed. But when it's intellectual awareness, how do you change it? Through affirmations or what?
Well, I have this belief, this understanding of reality that, affirmations don't really work that effectively if you have a belief system after belief system after belief system that believe the opposite of what you're affirming, right? So I like to explain to my patients that you have a network of beliefs, right? I sometimes ask the question, what comes first, a thought or an emotion? And some people say thought, some people say emotion. And as you know, there's many schools of thought in psychology that say, oh, the thought comes first, or the emotion comes first, so that they both come first, right? Or that they come at the same time. But what I think is that there's a network of beliefs that's constantly pumping out automatic thoughts and emotions. Anything that happens, anything that comes into mind, any action that triggers, will be filtered through that network of beliefs that will constantly be pumping out, like your heart pumps out blood, automatic thoughts and emotions based on those beliefs. So what I like to do is first dissect and understand the belief behind that, so the person is aware of that, right? So once they understand that there is a network, and that's how we work. We have like this network of subconscious beliefs that constantly pumps out that emotion. And we can dissect those beliefs, then we understand that, and then we understand that the beliefs are malleable and pliable, and we can change one out for another, but we can't ever change one out, or we can never take one out and that's it. No, we have to substitute it for another one. And there's many ways that I do that. Like one of them is, I do believe that sometimes people saying, oh yeah, I forgave my mom. No, let's say they have a horrible mother. And consciously they forgave their mother, but in reality, they hold the emotion there. Like it was only forgiven in their mind, and it was never taken down to a true, profound emotional forgiveness, and that change never really happened. So I do take, I speak a lot about the languages of the subconscious, and I think one of the strongest languages the subconscious has is very powerful emotion. So the way that I work with my patients is that I make them feel very intense emotions related to one of their belief systems and very intense emotions related to another one, where we're liberating the emotion that's behind, like the programming or structural factor. There's this concept, there's detonating. I don't know if you're familiar with allergy theory. There's a structural conflict and a detonating conflict. A very quick example. Let's say a man is eating shrimp and his girlfriend breaks up with him. He has huge emotional pain. And so next time he's eating shrimp with a girl, he might be allergic to shrimp. And that's part of allergy theory. In the first example, or the first part, it's the structural conflict. And then the second time he was eating shrimp and he's allergic to shrimp and he has to go to the hospital, he almost dies. That would be the detonating conflict. So I try and get down to the structural conflict of the belief, release that emotion, understand it in a different way with very strong emotion. And then we try and replace that belief with another one with very strong emotion as well. Of course, there's imagery. Of course, we do deep relaxation so we can access different parts of the subconscious mind. But I really focus on the person feeling that emotion. I don't know if that makes any sense.
100%. And look, you cannot beat success. So if, Alex, if it works, if people benefit, God bless you. It's yet another way. You discovered your way and you practice it and enjoy doing it and keep exploring. You may incorporate new things that you learn into this, and it can become a wonderful whole approach. Or it will be just a small technique for certain issues that you deal with, and for others you need something else. But it's an interesting approach. I think to go now.
Yeah. Yes. In neurolinguistic programming, there's a whole thing about anchors and how a strong emotion will anchor something to the subconscious. So it's nothing new. I just kind of confined the way of explaining it. Peter, you are an awesome teacher, mentor. I love you very, very dearly. I have such strong respect and appreciation for you. Thank you so much for joining us. And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me.
To all the viewers out there, this has been Esoteric Psi, the podcast, website, and school where we talk and we have to start a dialogue about esoteric wisdom, psychological wisdom, and spirituality in a practical way so that you can apply it to your everyday life. My name is Dr. Alex Holdana. With me today was Dr. Peter Reznik. Thank you so much, everyone, for contributing to this project.